Hey, it's good to see you. Tonight, I wanted to share some knowledge, if you will, by writing it on this here board that I found walking through Staples the other day. Very excited to share it with you, both the board and the information. I'll just be writing on this board with a stylus that comes with it. And every time I clear the slide, if you will, I'll be hitting this button to clear it. So those are some sounds you can expect. Without further ado, I'm calling this stress relief strategies. And we will, of course, be getting into the strategies themselves for sure. But first, I kind of wanted to take inventory of how it feels to be stressed, and also reframe the way we think about stress to kind of hopefully reframe why we want to not feel stressed. So we'll start with that. So when we are in a place of stress versus a place of center, so either feeling stressed or feeling centered, when we're stressed, often that looks like this. You feel rushed, maybe you feel burned out, maybe you feel overwhelmed, or a host of other things, none of which feel very good, right? We're not a fan of that. Whereas when we feel centered, we feel calm, we feel clear, and we feel confident, and anything else you might want to include there. You can also use a different word for center or feeling centered, like feeling grounded or connected or anchored. So if you look at this, obviously we would like to be in a place of center, right? It seems much nicer. I think it's nice too to think about what center and stress looks like for you, what behaviors you exhibit when you are stressed, what behaviors you exhibit when you are centered, because part of what we're going to need going forward is an awareness. So, when I am centered, I feel more generous with my time, I am more tolerant of different point of views, I do not second guess my decisions, things like that. When I'm stressed, I often feel a lot of indecision or kind of scarcity minded. Maybe it's harder for me to focus on people talking, even when they're loved ones. So it's just important to notice maybe some of the behaviors you exhibit when you're stressed and when you're centered, so that we can have awareness going forward. And of course, obviously, we want to be centered, right, versus stressed. That said, many of us spend more time in stress than we do in center. Maybe 10% of our time, depending on how stressed we can get. Maybe 10% of our time in center, for example, and like 90% of our time in stress. obviously that does not feel good. But beyond that, it causes problems for other reasons, because if you spend 90% of your time in stress and only 10% in center, that's 90% of your day in stress. That's, 90% of your interactions coming from a place of stress. That is 90% of your decisions coming from a stressed mind. And it is just not a nice way to be. Stress has a certain agenda, okay? So stress wants, what does stress want? Stress wants things to protect us. It wants instant relief. Stress wants to defend us from threats. It wants to take the path of least resistance. Stress wants to protect us from scarcity. So stress has our best interest in mind, but it's a little misguided, because stress is designed to help us. Like, when there's like a lion, a lion approaching us, it's like, watch out, there's a lion. Let's protect ourselves, let's defend ourselves. And that's helpful if we're in a place where there are lions, but most of our daily lives are not like that anymore. And we're not like seeing the sunset because our stress is kicking in to warn us of this lion that doesn't exist for all intents and purposes. So again, look at what stress wants and think, do I want to be making my decisions from this place? Do I want to be interacting with others from this place? Do I want to live my day in this place? So what stress wants results in misdirection, for one. So maybe you make impulsive decisions based on the urgency you feel. Maybe you take the path of least resistance, so you get further away from your real goals. You trade in the short term for the long term, things like that. It also results in wasted resources, which is basically just your time and your energy. No big deal, just your time and your energy. Loss of focus, maybe you waste time through indecision. Also results in disconnection, because when we are stressed, we are more likely to snap when we talk to others, or we can get defensive. We might also be unfocused when others are talking, even if it's someone we love. And it also results in no boundaries, or lack of boundaries, or lesser boundaries. Boundaries that we want for ourselves to take care of ourselves. Boundaries that we want to protect ourselves, to maintain our balance, to stay healthy. When we're stressed, we fail to enforce those boundaries, and that means you're not taking care of yourself or protecting your time and things like that. So this is what stress and stress's wants result in, which is probably not what you want. So some other things that people sometimes say about stress, particularly if they feel a lot of it or feel very stressed very often, things like, oh, after X project, I'll return to center, to not being stressed, for example. This, my friend calls the stress tunnel. It's like you're here and you're in this long tunnel, and the light at the end of the tunnel is all the way over here, and this is Project X. This is full of stress, and maybe it's going to take like 3 months or something. But you're like, okay, I'll be stressed this whole time, and then at the end, I can be happy again. What's the problem with this? Well, you're in stress for the duration of the project. Meanwhile, you're suffering, your project is probably suffering. You know, could be a work or school project, could also be like your exercise regimen, could be your goal to be a better friend. Whatever it is, that project's going to be suffering because you're existing in a state of stress while you do it. And even when you get to the end, there's always another X, right? Like there's always another project that comes along, and you just enter the stress tunnel again. It'd be one thing if there were only one stress tunnel in our lives, but if you have this kind of attitude towards it, you just keep entering stress tunnels for, just much more often than you need. Another thing people will say if they are very stressed very often is stress doesn't get in my way. But the thing is, okay, let's say anything that might be stressful, you're just trying to get to the other side of the road, right? But when you're stressed, you're not taking care of yourself, so you basically fall to the floor, and you can still crawl over here for sure. You can get it done for sure, but it's dangerous to cross the street on the floor, like crawling. It's not the best way. It is not the safest way. It is definitely not the most pleasant way to cross the street through your stressor. None of those. You're forcing your decisions to come from the floor. You're forcing your interactions to take place down here as well. It's just not the way it has to be. So, you're like, that is great, Mauve, but, where are my strategies? Okay, but how? How can I be centered more often than I am stressed? It's going to take a second to explain, but I'll say it's just a 2-step process. One, you're going to separate stress into closed loops. So your project might be 3 months long, and that's a long time to be stressed, but that's a big event. And within that big event, there are other small stress events that you can kind of parse out. So you want to separate stress into small events and small closed loops, regardless of the stress that might be coming from a greater, longer stress, like a project or an event. And I'll show you this in a second. And then you're also going to center or return to center or get grounded or whatever. Center like you hydrate. So get my little water glass there. We're gonna center like we hydrate. You know, I've never heard anyone say, I drank a lot of water today, so now I'm good until the weekend, you know? Similarly, I don't think we should be saying, oh, I slept 8 hours tonight, so now I can sleep 3 hours for the next 5 days, because that's not really how it works. Or, oh, I got my nails done today, so I'm good for the next month with all these stressful work projects coming up. No, you need to center like you hydrate. You are human, you need water, right? We all agree that that is important, that that takes priority. We're not mad about the fact that we need water, We're not mad about it. It's a neutral, physiological fact. And the same is true for returning to center, to letting go of your stress. So you need water every day, you need to center every day. All right, so more about those closed loops that I talked about. If you're very, very stressed, there's this ever expanding stress spiral. It just gets like further and further out of control. And here's all these little stress events that just keep exasperating one another and building until it's wild and you feel awful because it's like this big. What we want to do is make those little loops I talked about. So like here's a stressful event and you feel stress, but then you return to center. And then this other stressful event happens and you return to center. And then maybe 2 events happen and it spirals a little out of control, but you return to center. So you feel stress, center, stress, center, stress, center. And maybe it'll build a little bit, but it won't get so out of control like this ever expanding stress spiral that happens when you do not prioritize returning to center. The best thing about this is that the best thing about doing these kind of slow or rather small closed stress loops, it's like genius. Once you hear this, you'll never forget it. That's my light bulb. The best thing is that if you don't travel far from center, you don't have to work as hard to get back. If you don't travel as far from center, you don't have to work as hard to get back to center. So like your stress spiral, if it's this big, you're gonna have to do a lot to return to center because it's out of control. But if you more frequently do little acts of centering, it's actually really easy to return to center, and it takes like no time, blood, sweat, or tears at all. So we will now talk about those strategies. Okay, so this is what you came for, strategies. We're gonna think of this like filling up a toolbox that we are going to fill with lots of goodies. It's like your stress recovery kit. Closing a small stress loop, which we are planning on doing, is quick and it is easy. So I want you to think about these things I'm about to write and which ones you want to put in your kit. Okay? It's actually like so easy. All right. Any movement, any physical movement will reduce your stress, like scientifically proven. Could be sitting on your floor and stretching, could be doing jumping jacks, could be literally just going for a walk, shaking your limbs like noodles. That counts. You can still be like sitting in a chair, shaking your limbs like noodles. That counts. And what also counts is daily exercise that you're already doing. You don't want to add anything or like overreach in the beginning of making a new habit. This physical movement strategy or these physical movement strategies do not need to be like a 5K, 10K run that you shower after. They can be small, very accessible movements, and that is good enough, more than enough. So keep that in mind. And then we also have literally any connection that feels real to you. So calling your mom or petting your dog, laughing. You can breathe in, hold it, and release. Doing any kind of breath work, meditation, any kind of creative work that you enjoy. You can sleep. That is connection, reconnecting to your body. Also, crying can count. The only thing about crying is that you want it to be a physical release, not a mental or an emotional one. So if you're playing like a dramatic movie in your head, that's not going to get you that stress release that you want as purely as just like a good physical cry, just letting it go. So those are all things that you can put in your toolkit. And, we want to make it easy, right? So think now, like right now, how are these things available to me in my daily life? So, connection. Okay, I live with my partner, get a hug from my partner, or I have a dog, pet my dog, or my friend always makes me feel better. Okay, I'm gonna call my friend. I love to laugh. Okay, I'm gonna watch a funny video or something. However is most accessible to you. And with physical movement, like, okay, I love to stretch. Or I'm probably not gonna do jumping jacks, but like I'll do this. So think about some things that you can put in this toolbox, like 3, 5 or so. You can have as many as you want, but that is good to get you started. It's very quick, it's very easy. Like I said, all you need to feel less stressed, all you need is awareness, because you need to notice when you're stressed. Otherwise you can't act on correcting it. And then you also need strategies for closing those small stress loops, which is in our stress recovery kit. And you know what? We already did that. So, awareness, some strategies in your stress recovery kit. Keep them small, keep them accessible, easy. It should be quick, it should be easy. It should be things you already have the habit of doing. That will help. And you can expand from there. So I hope you enjoyed this video and that the way we reframed it and kind of strategized around it helps you stay centered more often, because we all deserve to feel centered more often. It's a place of calm, clear, confident interactions, decisions. You will be proud of the way you spent your time, proud of the way you took care of yourself, and you can be more present for your day, more present for your life, and not get trapped in stress tunnels or get stuck on the floor. Thank you so much for joining me today. I really like hanging out with you. I hope you found this useful, and I will see you very, very, very soon.